Thank you, Miranda. As always, please find that Q&A icon and start, typing in any questions that you might have. I do have a couple of housekeeping or overview type items that I'd like to cover, and there were a few questions that I was unable to get to on last Friday's call, and I would like to address those before I start answering from the Q&A today, but we should have plenty of time to go ahead and dive into your questions. So if you have some, go ahead and start queuing those up for me in the Q&A icon. Just again, sort of overview, housekeeping type items. We've been getting a lot of questions, on these calls and in our email boxes about when things will be resolved. And those are really tricky questions. And I wanted to just sort of address that this morning with all of you. Is we want to be able to provide you with status updates on these issues, global issues, or, your individual issues that you're emailing about, things like that. Unfortunately, it's not quite that straightforward. And, there's processes that occur for global issues with, vendor development. Then the vendor needs to test, then we need to test, then we need to roll it out. So there's quite a process in getting fixes into the production system that are affecting all of you. And we, have an idea of what we're working on at any given time, but at any stage of that process, something might not pass one of those pieces of the process, so like the development might not be able to get completed by a certain date. And then even if it does, maybe the testing on the vendor side reveals that it's created a new issue, or it's not truly fixing the issue. And so then it has to go back into the development queue and work some more, or it might get pushed all the way to us for testing. And then we don't pass it because we find something that wasn't found by the vendor. So it's really hard to give you updates on when we expect things to be deployed. We don't want to give you dates and get your hopes up and then, it not really occur at that time. So we're working internally to figure out how we can give you some better updates on where things are at in the process. But I'm just throwing this out there to say, we understand the urgency of resolving the issues that you're sending to us, and we are working very hard to get them resolved as quickly as possible. But what we don't want to do is fix one issue and create a whole bunch more issues. And I think we did see with the deploy on April 5th that we had, an issue that created a new issue that wasn't caught during that process, during that project cycle. So because of that, I don't want us taking one step forward and then two steps back each time we do a deploy to fix things. So I've asked both our vendor and our testing team to please be more methodical and thorough about the fixes to these issues that we're receiving. I would rather that we're taking a little bit of extra time to resolve something the correct way than pushing something out there that fixes the issue that you've reported, but creates new issues for you and creates new workarounds that you have to do. So again, I just wanted to kind of bring that up at this call and let you all know that, we are aware of the issues that you're experiencing and that you're reporting to us. We are aware of the urgency around those, and we are escalating those with appropriate priority and urgency. But we do need to make sure that, it's a lot of code. It's a lot of different little issues that people are experiencing. And we want to make sure that as we're fixing these issues, we are not introducing new issues or disrupting workarounds that we have in place for other issues that aren't going to be able to be fixed with that cycle, those types of things. So again, just requesting your patience and your understanding of that process, and know that we are going to try to find a way to be able to report out to you on these calls a little bit better on those statuses but it is quite complicated to do that. And, on these calls, I will try to tell you if there isn't, if you ask about a question and I know about an issue and I know sort of where it is in the life cycle, I want to be able to share that information with you. I want to be able to say, that the vendor is working on development or we're working on retesting that. But I need you to be aware that, we can't give you concrete dates on that because it could change. It might be in testing with us, and so hopeful that it's going to be going into the production system soon, and then we might fail that in the test, and then it might have to go back for more development and go through that cycle again. So, again, I want to be able to share statuses with you. I will try to share statuses with you, but I need you to know that we can't share dates and we can't, make any promises, even if something's in testing right now, that it's going to go into production, within a week or 2 weeks or whatever. It might, but it might not. So aside from that, I also wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that a weekly update went out on Wednesday night. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over the items that were in that email, but there were a couple of items that I did want to highlight, specifically around the reportable event form itself, and the fact that now the category of dangerous situation has a subtype for other. If you select that subtype of other, you will have a text field that you will be required to populate with the other dangerous situation information, so that we know what the dangerous situation was. So because of that, you no longer have to use the workaround for dangerous situation reportable events. You can now, when you select dangerous situation, you can select other and type in what the other type of dangerous situation is. Also in the reportable event form, the witness and participant, when you add a witness or participant, the options of contact and staff are now populating the pick lists, so you can use those options again. You don't have to use other and manually type in staff or individuals that would be system user accounts or contacts that exist on the person record. Those should populate for you. Along these lines, I did want to just say there was a question from Tammy last week that I didn't get to around the staff list, and the fact that inactive staff are showing up in that list still. That is by design. So we did intentionally have that list showing you both active and inactive staff, because we are aware that sometimes reportable events are not we're not aware of an event until well after it occurred. It might be shared with us by the person or somebody that was aware of it, a family member or something, well after the incident occurred. And so you might still want to add a witness or a participant that is a staff person that no longer works for that organization. So we intentionally made that list show you both active and inactive staff. And then the other item I did want to let you know is on behavior management plans. So there was an error that was preventing all users that have the ability to create behavior management plans from creating the form. That error has been resolved. So behavior management plans can be entered directly into Evergreen again. They do not need to be sent to the ODES crisis email anymore. That said, the PCP data entry role, I believe, is still not going to be able to attach the request form and the approval forms to that packet, that form, that BMP form. So you're going to need to still work, if you are a PCP data entry role, you are going to need to still work with a community case manager or a BI care coordinator to submit that behavior management plan until we're able to resolve the attachments issue. That issue, I am hoping is going to go into testing soon. It is still in the development phase, but hopefully it will go into testing soon and we'll be able to get that rolled out. But for now, community case managers, BI care coordinators should be able to create the behavior management plans. So as a provider, you can still get the request form filled out and hand that off to a community case manager or BI care coordinator and ask them to get the BMP entered for you. Additional items that I wanted to, that were not in the weekly email, but that I wanted to address on today's call that have come to my attention this week. One was that OMS sent out a provider notice indicating that they would no longer be assisting you with denied claims as of April 22nd, which is a week from Monday. Although that's true, I did want to reassure this group that OMS is still working with the MIMS vendor to release a fix for the provider portal that will allow you to submit your claims using the 17-digit Evergreen PA numbers. That has not been rolled out yet, but we're hopeful that that is going to be rolled out before the 22nd. I can't make any promises on that, but we're really hoping that that will occur so that it should be a non-issue for you. I also was made aware that there may have been some misunderstanding or miscommunication about what data is included in your Evergreen PA utilization report. So I just wanted to clarify and make sure that everybody was aware, and I did confirm this, that report does include all of your organization's prior authorizations, regardless of whether they were migrated prior authorizations or they were prior authorizations that have been created in Evergreen since the migration, since we went live in the migration. And it is including ones that were both auto-generated by the PCP and ones that are manually entered by the resource coordinator or care monitor directly in the PA module. So you are seeing all of the PAs that are in the Evergreen user interface for that, for your organization, for persons that your organization serves. Now, again, I will say that not all of the EIS prior authorizations migrated into the Evergreen user interface into the system. They are in our warehouse. We do have that data, but we only migrated 2 years worth of prior authorization. So if you're expecting to see something before February of 2021, 2022, I can't even do my math this morning. That's a good sign. If you're expecting to see something before February of 2022, you will not be seeing that in your PA utilization report. So if you needed that data, if you needed access to that data, you should use your EIS read-only access to view that information, or you should submit a data request to the ODES data at odesdata.dhhs@maine.gov email address, and then our team can pull that data for you. So those were the housekeeping additional items that I wanted to get through. The other questions that I didn't get to on last Friday's call that I did want to respond to this morning, we had a few around PCP SIP and a couple around reportable event and one around safety devices. So the PCP SIP questions that we received were, where on the goal page does the selected services and supports feed from? It seems to send the goals to the SIP. So this came from Vicky. I believe, Vicky, what you're asking about is in the PCP under the My Life Planning section, under My Goals, the community case manager or the BI care coordinator has the ability to link services, needs, strengths, and barriers up to goals. So when the community case manager or the BI care coordinator does that, they have a pick list of services and supports that they can choose from in order to link a service or support to the goal. That list is being generated from the PCP My Life Planning Services and Supports section of the plan. So any service that's under there, case management type, non-waiver, waiver, self-directed, all of those services are going to show up as options for you to link to those goals. You can link one or more services to any given goal. Then when a provider is invited to submit a service implementation plan for a waiver service, a SIP form, a service implementation plan, is auto-generated by the system. And that service implementation plan is going to display any goals for which that service has been linked. So it's going to show you one or more goals that service had been linked to. And it's going to give you all of the details for that goal. So it's going to show you the goal, all of the services that were linked to the goal, all of the needs that were linked to the goal, all of the strengths, barriers. It's going to show you everything that's in that goal summary view of the PCP, so that you as the provider can see everything related to that goal specific to the service that you're submitting your service implementation plan for. So I hope that answered Vicky's question. There was also a question about, or a couple of different questions about the provider access. This has been a sort of an ongoing question about provider access to the full PCP, the full print PCP. So again, I want to acknowledge the fact that right now, as PCP data entry role provider users, you do not have access to the full person-centered plan yet. So the current workaround is that your community case manager or your care coordinator does need to provide you a version, a final, they need to use that PCP person PCP print, I think it's called, and generate the full PCP in like a PDF format and send that to you once the plan has been completed. But we do have an item tracked to ultimately allow you as PCP data entry role to print that yourself. It's not available yet, but we are working to create that print version for you so that you have access to that. That is going to take some time for us to get that out there for you, because it's very that form, the PCP form, and how the SIP is related to that form is very complex and complicated, and there are a lot of security business rules built into that, so it is going to take a little while for us to get that for you, but it is on the list and we are working on it. There were a couple of questions around reportable events. Actually, I answered one of them already. It was from Tammy about the staff pick list. The other one was around Section 50, ICF individuals, and how they will complete 30-day provider follow-ups, because that's not an option in the who will complete the 30-day provider follow-up. So ICFs should fill out the provider follow-up on paper if it needs to be attached to a reportable event that was created by someone else. However, ICFs do have the reportable event provider role. So if an ICF enters a reportable event, they can enter their own provider follow-up on that reportable event that was created by them. There was one other question that was related to safety devices. It was also related to Section 50 users. And the fact that you do not have the community case manager role in Evergreen. So the question was, how do you submit safety device requests for safety devices? So as Section 50 providers, you will always have to continue to use the ODES crisis email process to request your safety devices. So those should still go to the ODES crisis email. And then there was one other thing that I did want to go over with you guys really quickly. I'm going to try to share my screen before I jump to the Q&A. Last week, someone asked about secure emails and sending secure emails. So I did want to show you quickly, because we haven't gotten the instructions out there yet, how you can do that if you use Outlook. Each email software is a little bit different, but I can show you, we use Outlook here, so I can show you really quickly under Outlook how you would do that. And then we will still get these instructions out to you separately. But what you would do if you're an Outlook client is you would create your new message, and then under options in your Outlook header, you have this encrypt icon, and you can use encrypt only will work for you. We at the state, we have these special encryptions settings. So if you're a state user and you're listening, you can use this state of Maine confidential or state of Maine confidential view only. But this one here will encrypt your email so that when you're sending it to us, it comes encrypted. If you're putting attachments that have screenshots, you can go one step further as well. If you want to, you can set a password on like a Word document or an Excel document, and then send us a separate email with the password for the attachment. But if you're encrypting it, if you're just typing stuff into the body of the email, then you can encrypt it, and that should send it securely to us. Okay, so I think that covers all of the items I wanted to go over with you before we moved over to Q&A. And I do see we have several items in the Q&A, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't try to answer some of your questions. So Wendy is asking about reportable events, and when entering staff that are not listed in the drop down, how do we enter them? Yes, if they are staff, Wendy, that are not users of the Evergreen system or never were users of the Evergreen system, then they're not going to show up in the staff pick list, and you should still use the other option for those staff. And then you can type in their name and role, or I think it's like role. So you can give their title. You can say they're staff at your organization. Bridget is asking whether consideration has been given to larger systemic fix rather than the Band-Aids. Yeah, so Bridget, obviously we really are trying to address the issues from a system perspective, but in the meantime, we have to provide you ways to keep doing your work. So we are giving you these workarounds and these quick fixes. I know that is, not always efficient for you and painful, and we do recognize that. But rest assured that we are not planning for these workarounds to be permanent fixes for you. We are working to address them at a systemic level. And obviously, we are prioritizing things that are related to service authorizations, prior authorizations at the very top, person-centered plan type issues also at the very top, and service implementation plan stuff. And then, depending on the complexities and the workarounds as well, like if it's, a workaround that's very cumbersome for you, we're prioritizing that higher than workarounds that might be less impactful. Bridget's also asking, have the directions for reportable events in the help center been updated to the information provided on this meeting? If there were any quick tips, I don't think there were any quick tips or guides related to reportable events in the help center, but if there were, they have not been updated yet. I'll definitely take that as an action and make sure that if there was any of those like instructional guides that reference that we do get those updated. Yeah, Wendy was also asking if the staff is not in the drop down, how do you enter those on the reportable events? Yes, still use other if they're not showing up in your staff drop down. But if they're an active staff person, or if they were historically a staff person and are inactive, they should be showing up in that list for you. And similarly as a contact, if they're an active contact on the person's record, they should be showing up in that list. If they're not showing up in that list, then they're either not an active contact or they're not a contact on the person's record. And you can add that to the person's contact list, and then they'll show up in the contact list for you. Bonnie is asking, do the names have to be in the contacts list in the person's record to pull into the choices? Yes, yeah. So that was what I was just saying, Bonnie. If you want like if the witness or the participant is somebody who should be a person contact, and they're not showing up in the list, definitely add them as a person contact. There may be a situation where there might be a participant or a witness that you don't want to add to the person contact list. Maybe an example is like a law enforcement officer or something that was present at the time of an event, and that person may never be present and need to be added to a reportable event ever again. But you still want to add that person as a participant or a witness to this specific event. That is a good use case for using the other option. That other option is just allowing you to add text fields and manually populate that. So if it's just like a one-time witness or a participant, definitely use other. Or if it's a staff person that doesn't show up in your staff list, use other. If it's somebody that interacts with this person regularly, then and is not showing up as a contact, then you can definitely add them as a person contact, and then they'll show up as somebody for you to pick ongoing. Also have a question. For the dangerous situation category, only one option can be selected. Sometimes multiple categories may need to be selected. For example, one of the options and other. Yeah, that's so requesting that you can do multi-select there on the dangerous situation. I can definitely take that back as a suggestion. For now, if there are multiple subcategories that should be selected, I would recommend that you select other and you describe both items or multiple items, multiple reasons, subtypes, I guess. But I will definitely take that back to see if that could be a multi-select. Chris is asking or indicating our SIP reports are not correct. Everyone in our agency is seeing different report when the same parameters are checked off. How do we get this fixed? I have sent this to evergreen.dhhs email, but have not gotten a response. The issue still persists. Yeah, I did see that, Chris. I have not had an opportunity to look into that in more detail. I am aware that the SIP provider invitation report is showing service implementation plans as in progress that shouldn't be in progress because they were migrated from EIS and they didn't have the lock symbol on them. So I was aware that that report is showing you additional or sort of inaccurate, I'm using my finger quotes, inaccurate statuses on service implementation plans, but it did just come to my attention this week that you were you specifically, Chris, had reported this, and I think others may have reported the same thing. So I need to take a deeper dive and look into that. I'm not sure why that's occurring, and escalate that up if I need to our vendor. But I am aware of that, and we will try to get to the root cause of that for you.
Leslie, this came up a couple times yesterday, and in the meantime, I would suggest that case managers continue to send messages to providers, and the provider can use the slideshow we developed in the quick tips, probably from like slide 8 on, where you actually look the person up and not rely on that report. What I've suggested to people.
Yeah, and I do continue to make the pitch to the community case managers and the care coordinators to continue to notify you regardless of this SIP report issue because you're not getting your notifications, so you wouldn't necessarily be aware that you've been invited unless they do that. So I am hopeful that community case managers and care coordinators are reaching out to you to notify you when service implementation plan invitations are being sent. But yeah, definitely use when they notify you, if you're not seeing it on the report, do a like a person search, use the step-by-step instructions that did get uploaded. Those did get uploaded. I know on last Friday's call, I said that they were there. And then when I went to look, they weren't there. They did get uploaded. Those are in the help center in Evergreen now. And they did go out attached to the email that went out on Wednesday night. We also have a question about the discovery date of a reportable event. Sometimes it brings up an error message that it cannot be prior to the incident date, even when the discovery date is the same as the incident date. Can that be corrected? Interesting. So there are 2 dates now. Maybe I can share my screen and go through this really quickly. So when you create a reportable event, you do have this question of incident discovery date and incident start date. So this date, discovery date, is when you learned of the event. So if you learned of the event today and the event occurred today, and it's also tied to the start time. So like I'm going to be saving this now. I would need to like it's 8:38 a.m. So I would have to put a start time that is prior to the current time. And then I can put an end date if I want. I'm not going to just for the purposes of trying to show you this really quickly. So because I said incident discovery date, which is when I learned of the event, which is today, and incident start date of today with a time prior to the current time, I was able to save that. However, if I create a reportable event, if it'll let me, and I say the incident discovery date was today, but the incident start date was April 1st at 8 a.m., it is going to make me fill out this question. Why was the past incident just reported? And that is because there's more than 24 hours between when I learned of the incident and when the incident occurred. So it's going to make me tell a reason for why didn't I get this in timely. So I have options of just informed, update to prior report or other. And then I just answer the rest of the questions. But if I tried to put a date in here, so like let's say I said today was the start date, but if I tried to put a date in here of yesterday, and then I try to fill this out, it is going to give me an error because I couldn't possibly have learned of an incident yesterday that occurred today. So it's going to error for me. And it's going to tell me that my discovery date cannot be prior to the incident start date. So then I would just go back up here and say, oh, yep, I reversed these. What I meant to say was I learned about it today. It happened yesterday. And then I can save that and it'll let me save that. Okay, so Emily is responding to a question from Katie, so I'm going to let her go ahead and finish that. I'm going to skip over that one unless you want to chime in. And nope, it looks like she finished that one. So I am going to go ahead and respond to this BMP question. So BMPs are typically produced and managed by providers with review documents and data collection being submitted by the 15th of the month prior to the review. Is this now going to only be allowed to case managers and care coordinators with the PCP role is needed to access? So just temporarily, that's the situation. This is one of those temporary workarounds. Ultimately, you as providers, PCP data entry role providers, will be able to submit your own behavior management plans in Evergreen. But unfortunately, the behavior management plan form itself requires that you attach that request form, and I think it's the approval form. And as PCP data entry users, you don't have the ability to do attachments right now because there's a security issue with attachments that we are currently working on. So let's see where this. I should know where this is. There we go. Behavior management plan. So the behavior management plan form itself has completion requirements for attaching both the functional assessment and the BMP physician evaluation. So you can't possibly attach those. That's so weird. I got to look into that. That was already attached when I created this. Nancy, can you track that we need to look into that? I created a behavior management plan and it
I'm
already.
not, Leslie, I'm not seeing your screen, so I'm not sure what.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I thought you were just walking us through it.
Nope, sorry, I meant to be sharing my screen with you.
Okay.
I'll go back and show that, but I created a BMP, a brand new BMP, and it already had an attachment on it.
Okay.
But anyhow, when you create a BMP in the completion requirements, there are requirements for these two, functional assessment and BMP physician evaluation, to be attached to this plan in order to submit it. And as PCP data entry role right now, you can create the BMP. You have the ability to create the BMP, and you have the ability to edit all of these other sections and populate all of these other sections that you have the permissions to do. But what you can't do is you can't attach anything right now. So you would end up filling out all of these sections, and then you wouldn't be able to add your attachments and set it to submit. So for right now, as a PCP data entry, you still need to ask your community case manager or your care coordinator to do this for you until we resolve that attachments issue, which again, we're hoping to resolve relatively soon. That issue was in testing or is in testing right now, so we're hoping to get that resolved soon. We have a question about how do we complete a 90-day review when a plan is already open for service changes? Evergreen will not allow another plan to be open to complete the review. Do we complete the review in the plan that is open for the service change, or is there a workaround process to copy the plan? This is more of a question for community case manager, care coordinators. So I'm not gonna get into the response on this call. This is a provider focused call, but we are aware of an issue where the system is not allowing community case managers or care coordinators to have two in progress PCPs at the same time. That should be that used to be possible. That should be possible. We are aware of that issue and have escalated that as an urgent priority. So we may talk more about that on the Tuesday morning agency support person call. So your agency support person should know more about that. I know there's some information that has gone out on the CCM channel about that as well, Teams channel, and we will also try to include some information about that in next week's weekly email. There's a statement, I think, about reportable events that says it was answered last week that we had to make a new report and choose update to a prior report. That option doesn't come up because it is part of the more than one business day question. So I think if I'm following what the statements are here, is there was a reportable event that you need to do a follow-up on, like an additional follow-up on, maybe. I guess I'm not entirely sure, Shirley, what you're asking about here. I'm certain it's related to reportable events, but I'm not really following.
Leslie, if you look a little further down, there's some clarification.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's saying that it's not possible to update or amend a prior report until after one business day has passed.
So reportable events. I guess I'm still a little confused. Will we have to wait to update, amend a prior report until after one business day? Yeah, I don't know what that means either. So reportable events, what I can, I'll try to give some hopefully helpful information. So as a user, when you enter a reportable event, So I'm just gonna go to the reportable event custom page. So as a user, when you enter a reportable event, I'm gonna share my screen again here too. Like I just did, I entered these two right here today. And I haven't finished filling these reportable events out. I just started them. So they are currently in this status of in progress. So this reportable event can stay in this status of in progress forever. There's no like time limit. And when it's in this in progress status, it is editable uh forever. But once the reportable event is completely filled out and you've met the completion requirements and you use this complete option, it will submit the reportable event. At that time, the reportable event is locked down. You can no longer, as the end user, you can no longer edit that reportable event. It has been submitted and is not editable. The provider follow-up, however, is still editable and should still be editable. So if you submit your reportable event and you have not done a provider follow-up, you can go back to your reportable event. You can add the provider follow-up at any time. You can add it and submit it at the same time if that is appropriate, but you don't have to add it when you submit it. And if you add it, but you don't complete it, you should still be able to come back and complete your provider follow-up forever, even past 30 days. So the deadline is 30 days. You're supposed to do your provider follow-up within 30 days. But if for some reason you did not do your provider follow-up in 30 days, you should still be able to come into that reportable event and add that late. I had also heard though that there is sometimes a need to do an additional follow-up, an additional provider follow-up, like after that one. So if you need to do a second provider follow-up, there is no way to add an additional provider follow-up to your reportable event, like another one. Like you can't click this button again, it goes away. Like after I do this, it's going to create my provider follow-up form and I can't add another provider follow-up form. But what you can do is fill out the paper provider follow-up form for your second provider follow-up. And you should be able to come back here and attach the paper provider follow-up at any time, even after the reportable event is submitted. This attachments icon should still be available to you. Let me see if I can actually confirm that on one that was in here. So here's one that was completed back on March 21st. Yeah. I can still, even though this is completed, I can still add an attachment here. So I think that should work for you. If for some reason you're not finding that to be true, please let me know. So hopefully that answers your questions, Shirley.
Well, I think it was in relation to, because people had asked the question about like, can you delete a portal event? And we had said no, but you can submit another report saying that you're amending a previous report. So I thought the question might have been saying that you can't in the same day indicate that you want to be updating a previous report. Maybe I'm not in the right kind of language there.
There should be no limitations on that either. So like if you entered, like say you entered a reportable event that occurred today, and you submitted it already, so you can't edit it anymore and it needs to be amended. And if the guidance was add another reportable event and indicate that you're amending the previous one, you should still be able to enter that. There's no limitation on entering reportable events, and there's no connection between each distinct reportable event. So the system should have no problem with you entering an additional reportable event. And, indicating I already submitted this reportable event on today or last week, and this is an amendment to that. Like, there should be no limitations there. There's a question around positive support plans. Currently, external providers are not able to see the person attachments tab to be able to upload that positive support plan. That is accurate. There was a security issue with the person attachments icon that was discovered shortly after we went live. So we removed the person attachments icon from several external roles. So as a PCP data entry role, or a reportable event provider role, or a provider authorization role, you're not seeing the person attachments icon on the person record, so you can't upload that PSP right now. However, a community case manager or BI care coordinator role can upload that for you. But regardless, you should still be filling out positive support plans on the paper form. You just, as that external provider role, you cannot currently attach those to the person record, but the fix for that is in testing, and we're hoping to roll that out soon and turn that back on for you, and then you will be able to upload those. But we want them
Apologies.
uploaded. We want PSPs uploaded into Evergreen, but there's no, it doesn't prevent person-centered planning from occurring if they're not uploaded. So go ahead and continue to fill those out on paper. If you desire, or your case manager desires for that to be uploaded to the person record, then you can share that document with a community case manager, and they should be able to upload that for you, or attach that for you to the person record. And then hopefully very soon you'll be able to attach those yourself again. Cynthia is asking, what should you do if a person's authorization is not showing in the PA utilization report? So Cynthia, I think this is kind of a loaded question, but if the PA exists in Evergreen, it is displaying on the PA utilization report. To my knowledge, there are no issues with that PA utilization report not showing PAs. Again, PAs from February 2022 forward. If a PA is not showing up on that report, it's likely that the PA has not been entered into the system yet. So I don't know if maybe there was a PCP that has not been set to complete yet and has not auto-generated that PA, or there was a request that was sent in for a manual PA to be created and it's still being worked and hasn't been entered by a resource coordinator. I know Emily is also typing an answer to you on that. So, okay, great. Emily's saying, please email the resource coordinator odes@maine.gov email, and she'll try to troubleshoot with you guys on those. Thank you, Emily. Allison is asking about the death and mortality form. It allows us to create the form, but not enter any information into the form. Is this an issue across the board? Yeah, thank you, Allison. So there are only specific roles that have access to create and populate the death and mortality form. I did see something come across this week about that. I have not had an opportunity myself to look into that or see where we're at with that, but we are researching that for you. Those roles that have the ability to create the death and mortality form should have the ability to populate all the data in it. But I don't know if maybe a role that wasn't supposed to be able to create it was just given create access by accident, or a role that was supposed to have create access has been doesn't have all the permissions to edit it, but we are aware of that and looking into that for you. There's also a question about, we have sent in new user forms to DHHS email and have had no response, and they have not been added into Evergreen. It's just taking time to add, or should we resend the forms? I know we are setting up the new user accounts. I'm not sure that, I'm not aware of a backlog on those, Cassie, but I will follow up with my team and see if there is a backlog on those. Don't resend them yet. I will follow up specifically to see, hopefully they came from you, or I'm not sure what organization you're with, but hopefully they came from you and I can find those. There's also I have a case manager reporting that she sent notifications for SIPs and we cannot see them even on the client's page, and SIP is not open for edit. Yeah, so I do realize it's 9 o'clock. I'll try to answer this question, and I do realize that I haven't gotten to all of them, so I will take the ones that I didn't get to for response at next week's meeting. So as far as SIPs go, if you are being invited to submit a SIP and you are not an active provider for that person, you are not going to be able to see the SIP form, and it should show up as in progress on your report, but you're not going to be able to fill out the SIP in the system because you're being invited as a new provider. So there is a workaround for new providers. We trained on that before we went live. It's still the same workaround where if you're not actively providing services for that person and you're being asked to invite a SIP, you do need to fill out this paper version of the SIP and send that to the case manager for attachment to the SIP form. Ultimately, we will get past a known issue that's related to this workaround. It's just that that's another one of those more complicated ones. It's taking more time to work to get that resolved. It's related to security and access and permissions and stuff like that. But those should be, your case manager should be providing you a copy of the PCP, and the paper SIP template is available for you to populate, and then you should be sending that paper SIP, that populated paper SIP, back to the case manager for attachment to the PCP, to the SIP form within the PCP. So we are a couple minutes past. Again, I want to say thank you to everybody for all of the questions. I have tracked the item from Cassie, and I've tracked the other questions that we weren't able to get to, and we will try to get to those on next week's call. Everybody have a great Friday and a wonderful weekend. And for those of you that get the long weekend, enjoy that. And we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.